I have heard nothing but good things about Death's Door for years and years. Every time great indie games have come up in conversation with my friends, someone would mention Death's Door and how incredible it is. The Steam reviews are glowing, and many talk about its unique art style and fun exploration, and how it's a great combination of older Zelda games and Dark Souls. It had been sitting on my wishlist for years, one of those games I always meant to get around to, but never quite did. During the Steam sale this fall, the game got a big discount. One of those discounts that basically screams by me now. I'd seen enough gameplay videos to know the art style was stunning and the game looked really interesting. An indie game about a Crow Reaper that looked like a living painting with strong Halloween vibes, perfect for this time of year. I didn't hesitate for a second. I purchased it and downloaded it immediately. Sometimes you think you're getting exactly what you expected and more. Sometimes you're in for a surprise you didn't want. Hey everyone, this is Ken from Smash Jump, and this is Nathan Lyons, Backlog Buster on Death's Door. Released in 2021 by the two-man team at Acid Nerve, Death's Door was a passion project and a standout indie gem of that year. The game blends a Zelda-style adventure with Souls-like combat, all wrapped in a Tim Burton-esque diorama. With the backing of Devolver Digital, a publisher known for taking wild, creative risks on indie games, Death's Door had all the ingredients to be their next big indie darling. Initially, Death's Door presents an intriguing premise. You're a Crow Reaper collecting souls to meet a bureaucratic quota. The game teases a satirical, moody exploration of bureaucracy and mortality, a world where the reaping of souls has become just another mundane job. The narrative, unfortunately, quickly deflates into a shallow backdrop, however. Characters drift through the world without leaving a meaningful impression, and while the game hints at a potentially fascinating world full of lore that could potentially hook me, it remained frustratingly surface level and one-dimensional until the very end. As soon as the game starts, you realize why people have been talking about it. Death's Door is drop-dead gorgeous. It's like someone took the most beautiful storybook you could imagine and somehow made it playable. The art style isn't just good, it's the best part of the game for me. Areas such as the Estate of the Urn Witch and the following Ceramic Manor capture that perfect autumnal feeling. Warm and cozy, but with an underlying current of delightful spookiness. You know the exact moment when autumn hits, when the air gets crisp, pumpkin spice starts showing up everywhere, and there's that magical sense that something mysterious could be lurking just beyond the golden leaves. It's the kind of environment that makes you want to curl up with a warm blanket and a scary story, while simultaneously feeling like something might be watching you from the shadows. I spent more time just spinning the camera around and looking at stuff than actually playing the game. Most games are lucky to have one or two memorable looking areas. Death's Door makes every single environment feel like something you could hang in an art gallery. But here's the thing about Death's Door. Visual brilliance does not automatically make a good game. Navigation can be annoying, there's no map to look at for reference. Level design can feel like an intentional maze. I can't tell you how many times I found myself wandering around beautiful but absolutely bewildering environments, totally lost and frustrated. The combat is fine, just fine. Sure, you've got a bow and some cool magical spells that add a bit of variety. The bow lets you hit enemies from a distance, and the spells have some interesting effects that can mix up your approach. The different weapon types and magical abilities keep things from getting too repetitive. You swing, you dodge, you shoot an arrow, you cast a spell. It works, but it never quite reaches that level of excitement that you hope for. There's no real sense of progression or depth. It's serviceable combat that does the job, but it doesn't leave a lasting impression. The bow and spells are fun little additions that provide some momentary enjoyment, but they can't quite elevate the combat from okay to truly memorable. Let's talk about those sub-bosses. Death's Door has a bit of a sub-boss recycling problem. The game does have a decent amount of enemy variety throughout its different areas, but when it comes to sub-bosses, you'll definitely notice some repeated encounters. The Ceramic Manor is a prime example, where you'll face similar sub-boss fights multiple times. The actual main bosses, though? Those are unique and genuinely fun encounters. Each major boss fight feels distinct, with interesting mechanics and challenges that keep you engaged. But the sub-bosses is where the game starts to feel a bit repetitive. Difficulty is not consistent in the game. You'll be cruising through an area feeling totally fine, then suddenly face an encounter that feels like it belongs in a completely different game. It's not that these challenging sections are bad, in fact, some of them are pretty exciting, but they come out of nowhere, with no real sense of progression or warning. One room you're handling enemies with ease, the next you're dying repeatedly, and wondering if you missed some crucial upgrade or mechanic. These sudden difficulty jumps break the game's rhythm and pull you out of the experience. Good game design should feel like a smooth, gradually increasing challenge. Death's Door sometimes feels more like a roller coaster with random emergency breaks. In a game with such meticulously crafted environments and a world that screams narrative depth, the puzzle design feels like it was an afterthought, scribbled on a post-it note. Most puzzles boil down to finding a way to press an obvious button or shoot an arrow through a specific pyre to unlock a door. There's no real brain-teasing moment. No clever environmental challenge that makes you stop and think. You'll see a switch, you'll hit the switch. You'll spot an obvious path, you'll walk the path. Some of the environmental navigation might make you pause for a second, but that's more about the intentionally confusing level design than any kind of puzzle solving. It's a missed opportunity. With such a rich, detailed world, you'd expect puzzles that match the game's visual complexity. Instead, what you get feels like placeholder challenges that a child could solve in moments. The game tantalizingly hints at deeper puzzle potential in a few areas, making the overall simplicity even more frustrating. The soundtrack deserves a special mention, and not necessarily in a good way. It's atmospheric, sure, but atmospheric in the way elevator music is atmospheric. You'll hear it while playing and think, okay, this fits the mood. It creates this underlying sense of mystery and melancholy that matches the game's visual style. It's not that the music itself is bad, it's just very forgettable. Each area has its own musical backdrop that blends perfectly with the environment, but none of it stands out. It's like the soundtrack was designed to be the most unobtrusive background noise possible. The Witch's Domain might have a slightly more haunting tune. The underground sections in the Flooded Fortress might have a more intense undertone. But ask me to hum any of those themes, and I'll just stare blankly. In a game with such incredible visual storytelling, the music feels like a missed opportunity. Great game soundtracks become part of the experience. They stick in your head, they make you feel something. Death's Door's soundtrack, it's just there, existing, filling silence, nothing more. Death's Door shines brilliantly in its art and environments, but when it comes to actual gameplay, it falls short of the titles it clearly draws inspiration from. It wants to be a Zelda-style adventure with Dark Souls combat depth, but ends up feeling like a pale imitation of both. The game looks incredible, with environments that are absolute works of art, but that visual magic can't hide the fact it doesn't do anything as well as its inspirations. Honestly, this might have been a game better left in the backlog. All those years of hearing about it, all that anticipation, and the reality is just disappointing. It's a beautiful postcard of a game that looks amazing, but doesn't quite deliver on its promise. Sometimes, a game looking good isn't good enough.